Alright folks, John Cordisco back again from Cordisco's Chess Center in upstate New York in Binghamton with another game for you today. I know the next game in order is the fifth game from the Eastern Class Championships, but today I had a small tournament here at my chess center behind the back of my convenience store. It was the 45th Binghamton Open, and there was about 6 participants. It was a small tournament. And I played a game in the last and fourth round. I beat a player just under master rating. He's almost 600 points higher than myself. I'm 1557 in rating and he is 2137. I'm so excited. It was about an hour ago and my adrenaline's still pumping. This is the highest rated player I've ever beaten. He's a really good guy. He's a very long-term expert plus in this area in Binghamton. I'm not going to say his name because it wouldn't really be fair because he had a terrible, terrible cold. But I'm excited. And I call this Miracle of Miracles because it's to beat someone almost 600 rating points higher than yourself and then basically almost throw the game away and still win it. I call that Miracle of Miracles because it was a miracle to get in that position. Mostly to do with the fact that he had a really bad cold. I played him many times. He's a really, really good player. He came up with me and another individual when we played in the New York State Championship in Albany. And the end of the summer they have that. And he's a good guy, and he was a good sport about it as well. And let me go through the game with you. I'm still kind of excited about it, so I'm going to go for the first few moves here. I am white. In this move here, F6, I was really, really surprised. You can't see it on your screen, but I have the computer on, and it gives roughly white about a third of a pawn. I was really surprised when he played this move. Must be some kind of opening preparation I wasn't aware of. He's a very, very good player. I move bishop. And I protected. That move there, I probably should have done a different move, but I just wanted to get developed. It was the last round. The first 3 rounds I had 2 losses and 1 draw. What I had to do was the higher section and the smaller section had to unfortunately play together because there wasn't that many people at this tournament. Probably due to the fact it was Palm Sunday, and on top of that, the NCAA basketball tourney's going on now, so I'm sure all those things combined. I wish I had planned it out a little better as far as the date. And let's continue on. And I went knight to F3. Now he really surprised me here with queen to D7. Not only is it pitting that knight against his king, it's also pitting that knight against his queen. Now, I thought to myself, okay, he's probably going to castle kingside, but his late squared bishop is outside the pawn chain. His late squared bishop here is outside the pawn chain. He can't bring them back to help cover behind the knight. And if he moves his pawns here to chase off my bishop, if he puts his pawns here first and then here second to chase my bishop back to here, it's going to ruin his pawn structure. So maybe he won't castle queenside. So I was kind of confused. We'll continue on. Now I went knight to H4. Sometimes you just play moves. I mean, I understand why I did it. I wanted to get his late squared bishop. And in a closed position, I probably should have kept my knight, but I wanted to trade down a little bit and hopefully get in a simple endgame and maybe draw. That was my goal. But this position is far from usual. It's very unusual, actually. And I kicked his bishop. I took with my knight, and he took with his H-pawn. Now, as you can see, we are in move 9, and none of us are castled yet. And this is a very unusual position. And boy, I'll tell you what, this is the best I've ever played a game. There's a ton of mistakes in here, so those of you that see the mistakes, give me some kind of a break. But I was tired. I worked 6 days in a row, and I had to get up early in the morning on Sunday to be the tournament director. But I love to play, I love the game, and I love to hang around people that love the game. So, okay, I moved queen to d3. Try to put the pressure on the best you can. My queen is attacking his g-pawn. I thought for sure at this point he would give up that pawn and just castle, just to get his king out of the line of fire. But he moved his knight to protect the pawn. Okay, I thought. His dark squared bishop is kind of trying to play in the game, but he'll get him out eventually. And then I moved my knight. Now he moved his king to f7. Now oddly enough, you can't see on the computer, but it shows the score is almost dead even. It shows white with a tiny, tiny fraction of an advantage. I mean, not even enough to worth to mention, which I thought was interesting. I thought to myself, well, eventually he'll kick my light squared bishop, or if I take his knight, he'll take with his other knight, and his dark squared bishop will be released, and he should be okay. I went c3, just wanted to reinforce the d-pawn. He went to kick my dark squared bishop. I moved him back. And now I thought to myself, okay, this is the top player that I know. And somebody I've known, gosh, 20, 30 years on and off since I was a kid. I'm in mid-50s now, but he's been around a long time, and he's starting to crawl out of his hole a little bit here, and I was starting to get a little worried. I went h3. He kicked my light squared bishop. I took, and he played queen takes. Now I was a little surprised he didn't take with this pawn here, the b pawn, and open up a file. Looks like I might castle queenside. Looks like it might not be. Apparently he just didn't want to tear up his pawns and have double pawns there and an isolated a pawn. And I can't blame him. I've done the same thing. And I moved rook to f1. Now currently, believe it or not, even with black's king in such a weird spot, it's a very, very tiny advantage for black. It's going back and forth here. He went knight to h4. And I thought about this move for a while. I mean, I could bring back my queen to guard the g-pawn, the knight's attacking. I could even move up my king to f2, which would be foolishness. Or I could have just moved my rook to f2. I didn't want to do any of those things. I thought to myself, you know what, okay, if he wants that bishop that badly, he can have it. And I took, and he took with his rook. He wanted to keep that file open. And frankly, I would have done the same thing. I went queen to e3. And he finally got his dark squared bishop into play. And I went f4. Now what I'm hoping to do is open up these pawns a little bit here. You see I have a rook on the f-file on his king. Eventually when I castle long, I'll bring the other rook around in case I trade it if there's a pawn trade. And that's what happened. I took, he took, then I took. Now that f-pawn is pinned against his king. You cannot move it. And I'll tell you, it's funny, even for good players like this gentleman, to have that constant threat of that pawn is just too much, and eventually you'll see what happens. He moved rook to h8. He's going to go after the only open file that's available to him. Can't blame him a bit. And I finally castled long. I thought to myself, I'm going to get my rook. I'm going to put it on the f1 square, put more pressure onto his king. And he went there. He's trying to get his rook into play. Actually, what he's trying to do is he's trying to get his rook to come to this square to chase off my queen. Frankly, and stop the pin. Frankly, I can't blame him. And I moved knight. Now that was kind of interesting how he probably could have moved his rook to here to f5 to chase off my queen. I'm not really sure if that's what he wanted to do. My queen's going to be able to get over here and get in his position. My queen could probably get in here or in here if he moved the rook, and that's probably something he didn't want to do. And he moved queen. Now he's going to attack my a pawn. Now, oddly enough, it's funny that the two choices on the computer are, one is pawn to g4, chasing his rook, and e takes f6. G4 is almost over 2 pawns ahead. And this is the psychology of it. I see his queen is attacking my a2 pawn, and his queen's going to get behind my king, and it's going to be a pain in the neck, and the attack's coming, and his dark squared bishop, and la da 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 da. And this is what happens when you're a low-rated player, and the other, you know, it's the psychology of it. And you want to be safe, and I move king to b1. Now, according to the computer, that I lost over 2 points in score. That's a lot. 3 points is a piece for those of you keeping track that don't know. Each point is based on pawns. So if you're 1 point ahead, 1.00 in score, you're 1 pawn ahead, quote unquote, in score. And if you're over 2.2 points, which that rook to g4 would have done, and I'll show you here, when he went queen to c4, instead of going king to b1, they had me move my pawn here to here. Now, the rook can't take the h-pawn. In fact, being my knight will jump into here, check. Pawn can't take as the pawn is pinned against the king. The king will have to move, and then knight takes his rook. So he didn't do that. So anyway, he went queen to e2, and I'm feeling a little bit of pressure here. I mean, my rook is there. He's also threatening my g-pawn. So I'm thinking what to do, and the only way to solve both of those problems is guard my rook and my g-pawn at the same time, is to go queen to d2. As you can see, it guards my g-pawn, and it also guards my rook on d1. Now I'm looking at the scores, a tiny advantage for black, believe it or not. He moved queen to e4 check. His queen later kind of gets in a little tangle, as you'll see. I think he should have traded off the queens, if you want to know the truth of it. I think maybe he felt he had more winning chances with the queens on the board against a low-rated player. I moved my king to a1. He went c5. Now, I find it interesting. I'm looking at the score here before black played c5. It makes two suggestion moves. Queen to g6, which is here, is queen to g6, or rook back to h8 is the two alternative moves. And after he went c5, it jumped almost a point in score. I thought that was a good move. I didn't see what the problem was. Now I'm thinking what to do. The computer says I should chase off the black queen with rook to e1, but I want rook to f1. I wanted that rook. He can't take my pawn now because of the discovered check of my knight, and he loses his queen. Actually, it'd be double check, which means he has to move the king. The rook and the knight would be checking him. If pawn takes, knight here, check. Check by the knight and check by discovery for the rook on f1, forcing the king to move, and then the next move is knight takes queen. He finally, and after you have that pin for so long on your king, it just gets so frustrating that you just can't stand it anymore. And I think that's what happened with him, and he just moved his king. And get it right out of the way, get it in safety. I chased the black queen. He went queen to g6. I took. He played queen takes. Now there's some threats here. I mean, you've got to look realistically here. It might be worth noting that probably not, but rook takes h-pawn, pawn takes, queen takes, I thought was a viable solution. I mean, it's giving up the exchange, but he's going to have an isolated pawn, and that's desperation time. I went queen to e2, just keeping it solid. And also, if you notice, the pawn on e6 now is attacked twice, and I'm threatening queen takes e6 check, forcing the trade of queens. He went rook to h6, and I went knight to e4. He played c takes d. I played knight to g4, forking his queen and his rook. Now he's thinking he's going to get a couple of pawns and a knight for his rook. Now, this is where the psychology comes in. This gentleman is such a very good player. I just happened to catch him on a bad day, but even on a bad day, I still have that mentality of all the years that I've known this individual, that he's a very good player, and boy, I'll tell you, he can pull something out of nothing. And I didn't even see this. He played d takes c. For some crazy reason, don't know what, I'm thinking to myself, all right, I'm thinking queen, my knight will either take the rook or play queen takes check. I mean, I'm so psyched out, and I'm so amazed that I've gotten this far in the game, that his queen is sitting there, and I don't take it. In fact, I called the gentleman after the game and checked his score sheet against mine, and he thought there was some kind of tricks with the rook and the bishop, and there isn't any. I was so intimidated. In fact, I didn't even see knight takes f6 with his queen, with check, I might add. And I just would have played knight takes f6 check. He'd have taken either with the bishop or the rook, and that would have been it. And I can't believe, now at this point, I'm doing very well considering my playing strength. And considering how tired I am and how late in the day it is, this is the fourth game in one day. We play game 75 here, for those folks that don't know. That means each side has 75 minutes on their clock. Or excuse me, we play game 65. And we have what they call a 5-minute delay. Every time your time starts, there's a 5-second delay before your time ticks off. That's a fairly fast time control. And when you're playing somebody as good as this gentleman, you need all that time. And I want to add at this point, I was a little bit ahead on time. I was probably 10 minutes ahead. And as we get closer to the end, you'll see that he gets in serious time trouble. I can't believe I didn't play knight takes queen check. It's a miracle that I got this far, and then it's a miracle that I didn't take his queen and still managed to survive. I played knight takes h6 check. He played queen takes, and then I took the pawn, and he went king to h8. Now right now, it shows white is almost 3 points up. That's almost a full piece. And still, here I am, seeing ghosts again. I was afraid that if I played queen takes this pawn here, queen takes the pawn on e6, that he would bring his queen, to here and cause me all kinds of havoc. And all I'd really have to do, and he would bring his bishop to f6, and I'm looking at all these ghosts and all these phantoms, and like, oh my gosh. You know, when you're under the gun, it's easy to see these things now that you're away from the game, and Your clock isn't ticking, and I'm thinking to myself, this is probably the only chance in my entire lifetime I'll beat somebody this good. Granted, he was having a bad day with his bad call, but and in fact, a little bit prior to this, maybe 2 or 3 moves prior to this, I offered him a draw. I said, you know, you're kind of suffering here. If you want to draw, we'll draw it. And that was before he lost the exchange. And he thought about it and he wanted to play on, and that's okay. I felt so bad the guy was suffering. Anyway, so I moved my king up needlessly, and look on the computer here, I lost 2/3 of my advantage. Now, if we're going to keep score here now, a rook's worth 5. Some people say a queen is worth 10. We'll just say that for general purposes. I have 19 points, 10 for the queen, 5 for the rook, and 4 individual pawns at 1 each. He has 5 pawns at 5, a bishop is worth 3, roughly, and a queen is roughly worth 10. So that's 18 to 19. And it shows about a 1.14 advantage for white. I think that's because of the fact I'm up the exchange. And he's got 3 pawn islands, and one of his pawns is isolated. So he played bishop there. And I moved my king up, just scared to death that I'm going to, you know, not get something here. I didn't want that bishop bearing down on my c-pawn and my king behind it. He moved queen to h4. Now that's pretty tricky, actually. If you see the square here, he's looking to check me here. Or he's looking to push his a-pawn down after my king. I could take queen takes queen, but I can't move my queen now. I have to guard that square, or it's going to be tough. Because he can come here, check it. If my queen isn't there, then the next move he takes the c-pawn here, and his bishop behind it, and I'm in trouble. So I start to freak out a little bit. I'm thinking, oh Lord, I finally get a decent game, and what do? So I just played it safe. He doesn't want to check with the queen at this point, because queen will take, pawn will take, and then king will take pawn, and I'll be way ahead. So he doesn't trade the queens, and his only hope is to try to get some kind of queen maneuver and fork some pieces. He went b4, or excuse me, b5. And I sat here for quite a while. And he was probably down to 5 or 6 minutes now. You have to keep score of all the moves on both sides, each player. And when you get to 5 minutes, you don't have to keep score. And he stopped keeping score shortly after this, but I thought about this for a long time. I gave this a lot of thought. I'm thinking to myself, gosh, he's threatening to bring his queen over here to a4 with check. Maybe somehow my king would have to back up. He could push the pawn to here. It'd be pinned because the bishop is right there. I'm looking at all these threats. You know, there's nothing more dangerous. Why these players are so good and why their ratings are so high? It's because they're good players, but the main reason is when you've got them down, it's hard to finish them off. Their level of resistance is much, much higher than most players. And even when they are losing, they find a way to at least draw. And these guys are very resourceful. They have years of experience. And I'm thinking to myself, oh gosh, here we go. He's finding these things. And I looked and I looked and I looked. And then it finally dawned on me. How do I stop his queen from coming in this general area here? What do I do to do that? How do I stop his queen from coming over to my king position? What do I do? And then it dawned on me. Queen to g4. Now, you're thinking, well, he played queen takes queen. You played pawn takes queen. Now you've got doubled pawns. That extra pawn is worthless now against that isolated black's g-pawn. And he's got a bishop, and you're going to have to be tied down in defending those pawns against the bishop. Well, no, as you see, because he almost has to take. because if he doesn't take, I'm going to take his e-pawn here. And there's going to be a mating net here very shortly. So he has to take, which he does. And then I retake with the h-pawn. Now you're right, I do have a double pawns on the g-file, and now one of his pawns is holding two of mine, and I have to think they have to come down and use that rook to protect them, but I don't. Reason being is that both of those g-pawns are on light colored squares, and he has a dark colored bishop, and by the time his king gets up there to wreak havoc on those pawns, I could either guard the first one with my rook, or by then my rook will cause so much havoc in the game it'll be over. So I wasn't too concerned. He moved king up. I moved rook over immediately. Now, when you have the advantage like this, you have to not let up. These good players are so resourceful. And now, right now, his time was probably down to 3 or 4 minutes. And it's not that easy of a position for him. And what he did was just a natural move. You push the e-pawn up forward, and the bishop is now guarding it. The problem with that is, he's probably thinking, well, the next move, he'll move his pawn here, and then I'll take, and then he'll retake, and his bishop will guard his pawn. The problem is, I move one of my double pawns that's really worthless. Now he's worth something. It's perfect. If he moves the bishop away, I'll take his e-pawn with my rook, guarding my g-pawn and threatening his d-pawn both. If he moves the pawn will take the bishop, and he's really doomed. So he did the best thing he could. He took the pawn, and now I took. Now I'm threatening his bishop and his d-pawn. Now my isolated g-pawn is on a light square, and on top of that it's way down on g2, way far away from his king. If his king ever has to come down there, it's going to take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 moves counting the capture, and then another 4 moves for the pawn. I mean, we're talking 9, 10 moves under perfect circumstances. That's a ton of time. There's no way he's going to be able to do it. So he went bishop there. I took the pawn now. And he's trying to move his king in. Move my king up. For those of you that are novice players like myself, remember, the king is a very powerful piece in the endgame. Not too much in the middle game because he's vulnerable with all the pieces flying around, but in the end, the king really shows his colors. He can go in any direction. One square, for those of you that are new. And I've seen values put on pieces. The knights and the bishops are roughly 3 points. Bishops are a hair higher. But I've seen evaluations of the king in an endgame is 4, which is actually higher than a bishop or a knight. Rook is 5. So that's pretty powerful. And I have my king right down on his pawns. Now if you notice, they're both on light squares. The bishop cannot protect them. So they're basically doomed. And he went king, and I moved my king up. Both of those pawns are going to fall now. He moved bishop up, attacking my pawn. I just went rook to d3, protecting my c-pawn, and the gentleman resigned. And I let out a big sigh of relief. It's funny when you're in a really tense and exciting game, as this one was for me. You just release the tension. It's, you know, it's incredible. Like the pressure valve just opens up, and it just, you know, it's amazing. And I was happy. I only scored 1.5 points out of 4 today, but I'll tell you, it was worth it. I'm really proud of this game, and this isn't Grandmaster chess, but we're not Grandmasters. And I'm happy to show it to you. Feel free to comment. And next month in April is the Broome County Championship here at Cordisco's Chess Center. We have it once a year. It's the only tournament I have here. It's a 2-day event. Normally they're on one day on Sunday, but the 13th and 14th of April they're going to be held here. It's open to any UFC rated player. The county championship is the biggest chess tournament in this area. Oh gosh, you can go 70 mile, 75 mile radius, 75 mile plus radius from Binghamton, and I don't think there's a tournament this big. It's you'll see the entry fees and all the details in Chess Life. Total prizes in all the sections is $1,000. That's the total prize money, and there's 6 very large trophies, 3 for the open section, and the reserve section, which is the under 1700 rated section. And also every single player, if you don't receive one of the first through third place trophies in each section, receives a nice little player award. It's nice little marble base. I mean, even if you're last, you still get an award. It's a great tournament. We usually have political people here to make the first move, and this year I believe is going to be the county executive, and gets all kinds of TV. We had 4 TV stations here, excuse me, 3 TV stations and the newspaper last time. It's great to see chess get so much coverage in this area. As one gentleman years ago said when I started my tournaments here, he was so happy I started doing tournaments here. He called this area Chess Desert. And so John is not a chess desert anymore. He's a good guy. Anyway, folks, I'm still a little wound up from this game. I'm so happy it's the highest rated player I've ever beaten. Granted, he had a very bad cold, but even still, he'll bounce back. He didn't lose that many rating points, so I'll leave you all with this. If you think chess is just a game, you're not playing it right. And I'll see all of you in the next video. Bye-bye, folks.